rejoicing, Elizabeth rejoicing, even the baby in the womb rejoicing. Philippians says, rejoice in the Lord always. Let me say it again, rejoice. The word joy in the Greek in these passages is chara. It's closely related to charis, the word for grace, because joy is this profound experience of God's grace. Now, that's just one word for joy in the Bible. In fact, in the Bible, there are 23 different words or phrases meaning joy. Joy, delight, laughter, celebration, overwhelming grace. It's like Julian of Norwich said, joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God. In our faith tradition as Presbyterians, we have a creed. One of our most popular creeds, and the creed says, the chief end of man, which translated means, of course, the chief goal of humankind, is to glorify God and to enjoy God forever. Joy is the goal of our faith, and that is what the coming of Christ is all about. Have you ever thought about practicing joy as a spiritual discipline? A few years ago, Hollywood came out with a new movie, a version of The Lone Ranger. The movie starts out with the ranger before he has gone behind the mask, but he's in a train car. He's reading a book, and he looks up, and he's surrounded by these scowling, frowning, black-clothed, off-key hymn singers. And one of them, a very precocious 7-year-old girl, struts down the aisle and comes up to him and says, "Would you like to pray with us, stranger? We're Presbyterians." I think that those Presbyterian faces remind me of a comment by Teddy Roosevelt's eldest daughter, Alice, who was said to have made a comment about Calvin Coolidge. She said, Calvin Coolidge was so sour-looking, he looked as if he had been weaned on a pickle. I think there's a whole lot of Christians who end up looking like we have been baptized in pickle juice. So we need to make it overwhelmingly clear that the goal of our existence has to do with overwhelming joy, enjoying God forever. And if that's the goal of human life into eternity, then maybe it would be a good idea for us to begin practicing that joy here and now. In medieval time, there was a special festival called the Feast of Innocence. For one day, the bishops, who usually sat on their thrones and gave their dramatic pontifications, for that one day they would be replaced on the Feast of Innocence with a child. For that one day, all the heaviness would be lifted, and on the throne of faith would be a child, and they would see things through eyes of joy. A reminder for us to look differently at our world. I like to look at brain theory sometimes, and the idea that the outer parts of our brain, when times are good, is where we have most of the activity going on. There's creativity and thoughtfulness and all sorts of good things going on, but when we're afraid, the thoughts tend to hunker down in the central part of the brain. Some people call it the reptilian brain. And there's two options, fight or flight. That's where we go to in our brain when we're afraid. And our actual vision narrows, and fear dominates our consciousness. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Fear engenders more fear. And all of a sudden, the conspiracy theories multiply. Practicing joy, it allows us to open our range of vision, to see more clearly what is out there. Practicing joy is where we go to for a sense of hope, and that's where our creativity resides. Faith and laughter are how we get there. Rejoice in the Lord, always, it says. Say it again, rejoice. Faith and laughter are the beginning of a jailbreak away from the fearfulness of the reptilian master in our brain of ourself. Rejoice is a spiritual practice. Winston Churchill was known to be something of a drinker. As he was speaking in one public gathering, a woman interrupted to criticize him in front of the crowd. She said, "Mr. Churchill, I suppose if this entire room were filled with whiskey bottles, you would see it as your duty to drain every one of them." And Churchill replied, "Madam, so much to do, so little time." Friends, we have so much to do, and there is no time like the present to start practicing joy. Theologian Conrad Heyer says his picture of hell is a place where everyone is worried about their status and everyone has something to complain about. So we grow protective, we become king of our own castle, and that's our reality. But as Heyer says, the castle that protects the king also imprisons him. You see, the right kind of laughter can set us free. Joy is an act of emancipation from the prison house of the self. When we're free to laugh, life opens up in unexpected ways. Our attitude changes our perception, and we're able to see what is out there, what is possible, what is coming. We're able to see what God is doing. I've lived in about 10 different cities in my life, and every city seems to take a different approach to building roads, especially when it comes to interstates. Some of those engineers out there, I believe they have a little Winston Churchill in their background with the way that roads kind of wave along and all of a sudden go off unexpectedly. And I've discovered that I can get really tense and aggressive and angry when I'm driving, or I can decide that the exit that I'm on that I did not mean to take, well, maybe this particular exit is the road to Narnia. I can just laugh and drive and explore and open myself to being surprised at some gift that's out there. Anthropologists have a wonderful word, liminality. Liminality, that's when you're in the doorway, you're in the hallway, you're out of one room, you're not into another room, you're betwixt and between. You're not quite clear where you're going. And in this liminal time, there's a sense of openness to the possibilities. Lighting all of our Advent candles is our reminder that we are in a liminal time. We're moving out of the realm of fear and into a new beginning of joy. We may not be there yet, but we have to open ourselves to seeing what's coming. We do not know where the road will take us, but we know where we will end up eternally. So there is this sense of hope deep in our souls. If we open ourselves to God's astounding newness, then we'll find it here and now. Christ will come to us. There's a betwixt and between experience in Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Ebenezer Scrooge falls asleep. The three spirits come to him from past, present, and future, and they confront him. Which road will he take? Where will he go after this night? Where will he end up? Will he end up like Marley, shackled for eternity by his greed and hard-heartedness? Or will he find the new meaning of Christmas? We only discover that Scrooge has broken the chains that bound him when on that beautiful Christmas morning he opens up the window and he begins to laugh. See, laughter is a sign that the chains can be broken. The chains of fear and hopelessness, of worry, of self-centeredness, even the chains of death? Laughter opens us up. Joy puts things in perspective. It's like Fred Astaire reminds us, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. Life is about dancing in the rain. Laughter helps us to live life expectantly that Christ will come to us and bring us something new. Laughter helps us ease conflicts. Laughter helps us connect with other people as we make them laugh. And if you want to take someone out of a miserable mindset, make them laugh. And if you want to change the world, give the world something to laugh about. Miroslav Wolfe is a professor at Yale. He engaged the entire university from the divinity school on the project of joy and a fulfilled life. And it had so much to do with what brings us deep joy. Wolfe says joy is thicker than mere happiness. Joy is deeper because it's not just tied to present circumstances that may quickly go away, but rather joy is something that you can know even in the worst of circumstances. How? True joy is not something that we can manufacture. It is a gift of God. It comes from God. Just look at Mary. Mary discovers she is pregnant out of wedlock. She has a word from the angel of the blessing that this is, but she doesn't really celebrate it. She's still caught betwixt and between, so she runs to the hills to her cousin Elizabeth to tell her she's pregnant, and Elizabeth, instead of judging her, immediately laughs for joy and tells Mary to celebrate. And it's only when Elizabeth laughs with her that Mary then begins to sing for joy. Joy is infectious. You can see it there in the scripture. Joy is infectious in a good way. Zora Neale Hurston said, "Love makes your soul crawl out from its hiding place." I think she's right, but I think laughter does the same thing. It makes us crawl out from our hiding places and engage the world, engage one another, and find that God has come to us in the midst of that time and place. The essence of comedy is this: we start off with an expected world, but then we're taken someplace new. And when we think that we know everything about God, well, we have another think coming. The story of Mary goes like this. People thought they knew one thing, but then God gave them a mother. Picture Elizabeth and Mother Mary up in the hills, singing and laughing for joy. Joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God. But joy is a habit that we have to practice, to get out of ourselves, to open ourselves up, to see the possibilities and the delight that's there. Joy is the possibility of entering into God's joy and therefore defying despair. Christ comes to us. That's what we celebrate at Christmas. But the intention is to know that Christ comes to us as a surprise in an unexpected time and place. When we laugh and rejoice, we are more ready, willing, and able to see that surprise that's coming to us in Christ for what it is. The birth of Jesus takes us beyond the betwixt and between of our lives into the rebirth of faith, into the rebirth of our life, into a life filled with joy. We practice being joyful, laughing, taking ourselves less seriously, taking other people more seriously, opening ourselves up to the possibilities of joy that are around us. And when we practice joy, it connects us with our destiny. Practicing joy connects us with our destiny. It connects us with other human beings. It connects us to God, who is the source of our deepest joy. So this Advent season and every day, practice joy as a spiritual discipline to be ready for the coming of Christ, a birth that marks the beginning of joyful laughter that will echo throughout eternity.
Thanks for watching our video. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest and greatest videos from the Old Stone Church. And if you feel blessed by our message, please go to theoldstonechurch.org and click to donate. God bless you today and forever. The Old Stone Church. We've been loving Christ and serving City since 1820.